I never thought I'd be one of those people. The ones who come home to find their lives turned upside down, everything carefully built over years swept away in a single, callous act. The ones who, despite their best efforts, end up standing there like I was, staring at a bank account drained to zero, trying to comprehend how a person they once trusted could betray them so completely. I tried to piece together what I must have missed. The signs, if they'd ever been there, were so subtle that I couldn't see them even in hindsight. She had always been charming, always been sharp. She managed our household's finances while I handled the day-to-day stress of work. Trust wasn't even a question, it was the foundation of everything we had. I remembered the day we opened that college fund, right after our son was born. She was the one who suggested it. "Let's start early," she'd said, holding his tiny hand in hers as he gurgled and smiled up at her. "He's going to need a good education. He's going to need every advantage we can give him." I was proud of her then, proud that we were thinking ahead, planning for his future even before he could sit up on his own. Over the years, I made sure that fund grew. Every raise, every bonus, every bit of overtime pay went into that account. It wasn't just money, it was hope. It was proof that, no matter what happened, our son would have opportunities we never had. It was the thing I clung to whenever I worried about the future, about whether we were doing enough as parents. And now it was gone. Just like that. When I saw the empty account, I thought it must be some kind of mistake. A glitch, a hack, anything but the truth. But as I logged into other accounts, the picture became painfully clear. Her name was on every transfer. She hadn't even tried to hide it. The realization hit me so hard that I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the screen like it might suddenly give me a different answer. But it didn't. It just confirmed over and over that she had taken everything. Everything we'd saved. Everything we'd worked for. Everything our son had counted on. I didn't even notice my son walk into the room at first. He'd just gotten home from school, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He was wearing that same blue hoodie he always wore, his favorite. He dropped his bag by the door and walked over, his face lighting up when he saw me sitting there. "Hey Dad," he said, his voice so innocent it hurt. "What's for dinner?" I couldn't answer. I couldn't even look at him. All I could think was, how am I going to tell him? How do you tell a 10-year-old that his future just vanished? But he must have sensed something was wrong. Kids always do. He came closer, leaning against the counter, studying my face. "Dad? What's wrong?" His voice was softer now, more tentative. I tried to smile, tried to say something that would make it all seem less horrible than it was. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I blurted out the truth in a rush. "Your mom, she's gone." His eyes widened. "Gone? Where did she go?" I couldn't bring myself to say the rest of it. I couldn't tell him that she hadn't just left, she'd taken everything with her. His college fund. Our stability. Our family. He looked at me with those big, trusting eyes, waiting for an explanation I couldn't give. "She took the money," I finally said, my voice cracking. "She drained your college fund and she left with someone else?" His expression didn't change right away. He just stood there as if trying to process words that didn't make sense. "What do you mean she took it?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "You mean it's all gone?" I nodded. "Yeah, it's all gone." For a moment he was silent. Then he asked the question that shattered me completely. "But what about my college? What about my future?" I couldn't answer. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell him it would be okay, that I'd find a way to fix this, that his mom would come back and everything would go back to normal. But I couldn't. Because I didn't know if it would. "I don't know, buddy," I said quietly. "I don't know." That's when he surprised me. Instead of crying or yelling or blaming me for not seeing this coming, he did something I never expected. He looked at me, his little chin trembling, and said, "It's okay, Dad. Don't worry. I'll figure something out. I'll fix it." I blinked at him, stunned. "You'll fix it?" He nodded, his eyes brimming with tears he refused to let fall. "I'll work hard. I'll get a job. I'll save money. I'll figure it out." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Here was my 10-year-old son, standing in front of me with the weight of the world suddenly on his small shoulders, and he was offering to fix something he couldn't possibly fix. Something that wasn't his responsibility to fix. But his determination was real. He meant it. And that broke me even more. How could she do this to him? To us? I pulled him into a hug, holding him tighter than I ever had before. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." He held on to me for a long time, and I could feel his little heart pounding against mine. Eventually, he pulled back and looked at me with that same determined expression. "It's okay, Dad. We'll figure it out together." I nodded, trying to muster some of his courage. "Yeah," I said. "We will." But inside I was still reeling. How do you rebuild after something like this? How do you move forward when everything you thought you could count on disappears overnight? Over the next few weeks, I tried to piece my life back together. I talked to lawyers, but the money was long gone. She had taken it and moved overseas, making it nearly impossible to recover. I explained the situation to my son's school, hoping they might offer some kind of assistance down the line, but they could only do so much. I took on extra hours at work, anything I could do to start saving again. And through it all, my son stayed by my side, trying to help in any way he could. He offered to do chores around the house to save me time. He started looking up ways to earn money online, little tasks he thought might make a difference. I told him again and again that it wasn't his responsibility, that it wasn't his job to fix this mess. But he wouldn't hear it. He kept telling me, "We're a team, Dad. We'll figure it out." And somehow, his unwavering faith in us, in me, gave me the strength to keep going. As time passed, I began to see just how much strength my son had. His resilience and determination kept me grounded. While I initially thought I needed to shield him from all the weight of what had happened, it turned out that facing it together, honestly with clear eyes, was the best path forward. I realized that as much as I wanted to protect him, he was also protecting me in his own way. He gave me a reason to keep moving forward when it felt like the ground beneath me had given way. We spent more time together, not just out of necessity but because we found comfort in each other's company. We played soccer at the park, cooked simple meals together, and even started a small weekend tradition of watching movies late into the night. These moments, though small, reminded me that not everything had been lost. My son still had his joy, his curiosity, his sense of humor, and he still had me. That was what mattered most. We also began talking more openly about the future. I didn't have all the answers, but I promised him that we'd find a way to rebuild his college fund. I let him know that I was proud of his strength, and I told him that it was okay to lean on me too. We set goals together, little milestones to work toward step by step. At first, it was as simple as saving a bit of money from my extra work hours. Over time, it grew into a plan, seeking scholarships, exploring low-cost college options, and making the most of community resources. What had once felt insurmountable slowly became something we could tackle, one step at a time. My son took these challenges in stride, but he also learned that it was okay to grieve what we had lost. We had honest conversations about his mom, what she had done and how it had changed our lives. I didn't sugarcoat her actions, but I tried to show him that we could move forward without resentment weighing us down. While the hurt didn't disappear, it became more manageable. We learned to find solace in the present, in the fact that we still had each other. Through it all, I saw my son grow in ways I hadn't expected. He became more responsible, more compassionate, and more independent. He started helping his classmates with their homework and even started volunteering at the local library. His experiences, though painful, gave him a perspective far beyond his years. And as he grew, I found myself growing too. I learned to be more present, to let go of bitterness, and to appreciate the life we were building together. Years later, I stood by his side as he walked across the stage to receive his diploma. We had done it, together. It wasn't the path I had imagined when he was a baby, but it was ours, and it was hard-earned. As he shook hands with his teachers and waved at the crowd, I felt an overwhelming pride. Not just for what he had achieved but for who he had become. My son, who had faced adversity with courage and hope, had grown into a young man who believed in himself and in the power of perseverance. After the ceremony, we sat down for a quiet moment together. He looked at me and said, "Thanks, Dad. I couldn't have done it without you." I smiled and shook my head. "No, buddy. You're the one who showed me what it means to keep going. Thank you." In that moment, I realized that we had been each other's strength all along, and that was what mattered most.